Chapter-3, The Family. When Kali Prasad saw the light of the world, that era had already begun, shedding radiance all around. Sri Ramakrishna's life was an unfathomable music. It had many voiced sweetness, its stupendous reality, its harmony of 100 ideals, its ever-growing height and depth had the gift of infinity in them. A negative infinite always moved his scorn. He held, worshipped, and taught the infinite positive. The soul of prophecy and poetry both was in him. He could not only behold, but he could utter and proclaim from the direct source of knowledge. And this is why all his utterances went forth as a song, as a glory, as an unnameable influence, deep into every soul, deep calling unto deep. His life had the heavenly magic of making the true beautiful and the beautiful true. But the truth and beauty lay in his goodness. He was completely good, good in every relation, strong in his goodness, fearless and confident like a child, never vain in his success, never downcast in his failures. All religions found in him their congenial elements, all scriptures their expounder, all prophets their disciple. It seemed as if he could speak the language of 100 spheres and partake of the sacraments of 100 communions. Every description of devotee found in him a fellow devotee, Hindus, Muslims, and Christians alike. Every sinner, every sorrow-stricken soul found in him the curing consolation that comes of kindred experience. The joyful found in him abundant perennial joyfulness. The pure-minded came from him with a brighter flame of purity. Only the wicked, evil-disposed, and the unbelieving found him fearful like a sword. The harmony of a higher world was with him. His complicated, many-sided perfection made it difficult to comprehend him. He was sound and whole to the very core, and he made the earth wholesome to those who were around him. Thus it was Sri Ramakrishna and Sri Ramakrishna alone who kindled higher aspirations of spirituality throughout the country. And it can be said without any fear of contradiction that ever since his advent in a lonely corner of Bengal, every religion has caught fire in India. Every community scintillates with life. And what is more, the course of an imperfect civilization, borrowed at second hand from sources unworthy to represent it, has been arrested. A great many reformers have arisen, of whom Sri Ramakrishna was the pioneer. The genius of Sri Ramakrishna was complicated and profound, God-inspired. It reflected every light, every want, every aspiration of the age. It aimed at removing all darkness, doubt, and sorrow. He labored really radically to bring the kingdom of heaven on earth. He lived in that kingdom in his heart. He wanted to make it a fact in the world. He tried to live like an ideal Hindu devotee, to whom everything else seemed insignificant except the journey Godward. He had only one mission in his life, to establish new ideals of spiritual culture and attainment. He was the originator and author of things, turning ideas into facts, making the abstract concrete. He was a seer of unseen truths and harmonies in strange phases of life and systems. He was the prophet of a higher faith, of a pure morality, of a superior humanity, never dreamt of or conceived by any prophet or seer in any age and anywhere in the world. His soul was full of calmness and sweetness. The love of God was with him and restful of the mystery of strength. With him, faith was the profoundest wisdom and a certainty in everyday life. With Ramakrishna, the presence of God was a ready guidance that sufficed for all the intricacies of a unique life of strange trials. The very advent of Ramakrishna brought in its trail a God-conscious era. And it was in this phenomenal era that Kali Prasad Chandra was born, to fulfill in due time the great task entrusted to him by his master. Swami Abhedananda has left behind him an excellent autobiographical narration, the Amar Jiva Katha, the story of my life, which unfortunately for us he could not complete. The book covers the period of his life from 1866 to 1894, which constitutes just the first phase of his eventful career. From this personal account, we gather that his father, Rasiklal Chandra, was a student of philosophy and a teacher of English in the Oriental Seminary in North Calcutta for 25 years, from 1838 to 1863. Rasiklal was just a boy of 10 years when Raja Ram Mohan Roy died in Bristol in 1831. Thus, Rasiklal was born in the second decade of the 19th century, a contemporary of such celebrities of the period of Maharshi Debendranath Tagore, Vidyasagar, Narayan Bose, and others who shaped the minds of young Bengal and whom the Renaissance owed so much for its flowering. Just as a Hindu college had played a prominent role in the early days of Renaissance in Bengal, so did Oriental Seminary, which was founded by Gur Mohan Adi in 1825. And it was here that both Swami Premananda and Swami Abhedananda had their early schooling. It was one of the earliest institutions in Calcutta to teach English to the Bengali Hindus, and a large number of students belonging to the noble class of the Hindu society came out of this school well versed in the English language. Among the pupils of Rasik Master, as Rasiklal Chandra was known, we find such names as Vishwanath Dutt, the father of Swami Vivekananda, Girish Chandra Ghosh, the renowned dramatist, and many others, such as the householder devotees of Sri Ramakrishna. All of them held Rasik Master in their high esteem. From all accounts we have been able to gather, it is certain that Rasiklal Chandra was an ideal teacher of his time. His scholasticness, purity of character, and his strict adherence to the tenets of Hindu custom earned him a great reputation as a teacher. His command in English was a talk of the town, and people flocked to him to seek his services as an interpreter of that language when they needed it in their dealings with Englishmen. The family in which a child is born always throws a floodlight on its life and character. As there is a physical unity of type in every family, so there are points of resemblances in the internal qualities, the inner characteristics. Some family bears a stamp of hereditary nobility. The Chandras of Abhiratola were noted for their nobility, which was reflected in a remarkable degree in Rasiklal. The simplicity of his life, the purity of his character, and his trust in all-wise, all-merciful providence helped him to steer clear of all difficulties with his slender means and live a happy, contented life. Seldom do we see a family so happy and contented, where reign peace and harmony and a moral atmosphere which help the children to grow up in the path of virtue and rectitude. In religion, he was a confirmed Unitarian. Virtue was the breath of his life, and philanthropy, a creed with him. He had a great faith in the preachings of Ram Mohan, and he derived immense pleasure in the reading the Bengali translation of the Upanishads done by Ram Mohan. About his mother, Swami Abhedananda himself has recorded the following. My mother was a virtuous and intensely religious-minded woman. She was an ideal Hindu lady who had little education but enough common sense. Her devotion to Hindu ideals of a woman's life set an example to her neighbors most of whom regarded her with high esteem. She never took a drop of water without reading a chapter of the Ramayana or the Mahabharata after her morning rites. When she used to read these two epics, I always stood by her side in rapt attention. In those days, almost all the pious Hindu housewives possessed a copy of the Bengali Ramayana written by the Kirtibas and a copy of the Bengali Mahabharata, and they learnt it almost by heart. Those two Bengali epics were regarded by them as the most holy scriptures out of which they would derive much to make their home and hearth happy. Thus, in my childhood, I could fully realize the extraordinary characters as depicted in the Ramayana and the Mahabharata, as well as the essentials of the Hindu religion, says Swami Abhedananda. From the accounts we have been able to gather from authentic sources, it must be said that Nayantara Devi, the mother of Kali Prasad, was an uncommon woman, and there is no doubt that much of the maternal excellence was transmitted to the character of the son. It is difficult to describe a Hindu lady of the last century in words that will convey an adequate impression to the European mind. In the first place, she was without education in the ordinary sense of that word. She might be able to read a little or write a letter or two. She may recite a sloka or possess a smattering of scriptures. But the real Orthodox Hindu lady was never learned in books in those days. In the second place, the Hindu lady during the 19th century had no society except now and then that of other ladies like herself who met on occasion of religious and domestic festivals. But the Hindu system of household during the period we are speaking of was the joint patriarchal system by which many relatives lived under a common roof with their wives and children, so that the ladies had plenty of company in their own homes. The Hindu lady had no admirers, no fashions, no dinings out, no shoppings, no opportunity of producing the least impression upon the outside public. All her work was purely domestic work, plain, hard, daily drudgery. The rearing up of the children, the cooking of meals, the cleaning and sanitation of the house, the preparation and preliminaries for daily household worship and occasional religious festivals. Nayantara Devi had become a widow at the age of 46, and her second son, Kali Prasad, was less than 16 years old at that time. The Hindu widow in those days, and even today, have to live the life of a perfect anchorite. She is a rigid vegetarian, eats a single meal a day, fasts twice in a month without an atom of food or drink, even in the hottest time of the year, and never wears an ornament, nor dresses carelessly and coarsely, and devotes her life to religious duties which are her only pleasure. A great many practice this asceticism as mere routine. Some follow it from fear of public opinion. Not a few indulge in secret luxury and vice, but just a handful take to the asceticism out of genuine preference and a heartfelt desire to renounce the world. Kali Prasad's mother was most undoubtedly answers to this last description. Born of respectable parents and trained up according to the strictest rules of Hindu seclusion, Nayantara was married to Rasiklal Chandra when she was not more than 14 years of age. She was the second wife of Rasiklal, who was then a widower, and by his first wife he had one son and one daughter. The son, Biharlal, was a student in the Free Church Institution, a school founded by Alexander Duff in 1830. And here among his classmates was one Kali Mohan Banerjee, who became subsequently known as the Reverend K.M. Banerjee. Kali Mohan was a nephew of the renowned scholar and missionary, the Reverend K.M. Banerjee. Both the boys, after reading the Bible, were attracted to Christianity, and ultimately both of them were baptized in Fort William Church. They had then just passed the entrance examination. When his only son, Biharlal, was about to follow the example of his classmate and was ready to embrace Christianity, Rasiklal tried his utmost to dissuade his son, but in vain. This was a great shock to the parents, particularly to the mother, who died shortly afterwards. In those days, a large number of Bengali young men who had their education at the missionary schools were attracted towards this alien religion, and most of them, belonging to the well-to-do family, left their ancestral belief and embraced Christianity in the hope that it would be helpful to them in their material life. When Bihar Lal became a Christian, and shortly afterwards when his first wife departed, Rasik Lal lost all interest in his life and he resolved to commit suicide. With this intention in his mind, one morning he went to the banks of the Ganges, which was not far from their home. He was about to take a dip for death in the sacred river. But suddenly came a bid from the blue. "Why are you bent upon committing suicide? Marry again." Rasik-Lal was then in the midstream when he heard this oracle. It was a breezy morning, and the crimson sun was just about to rise on the eastern horizon. A serene calmness prevailed all around, and there were but a few early bathers around him. It was a clear voice that rang in his ears. "Why are you bent upon committing suicide? Marry again." Nobody excepting himself knew that he was there with a sorrowing mind. As he heard the ethereal voice, Rasiklal looked around but found nobody who might have uttered the strange words. It must be an oracle, he concluded, and consequently he then gave up his idea of committing suicide. He came out of the waters after having proper oblations and returned home in a pensive mood. His heart was overwhelmed with grief and his house was empty. Days went on, and Rasiklal remained undecided for some time as to the course he would take. After a few months, he married Nayantara. In the course of time, she bore him 9 children, of whom 5 met with early death, and of the remaining 4, Kali Prasad was the second. Of a fair complexion, rather tall in height, with a figure well shaped and well rounded, with features exquisitely chiseled, wearing over all her handsomeness the sacred veil of classical Hindu modesty, the newly married wife of Rasiklal soon became the cynosure of all eyes in that 2-storied house situated at 22 Nimu Goswami Lane in North Calcutta. As Swami Abhedananda later wrote, "Long before my birth, my mother, who was virtuous in the true sense of the word, used to visit frequently the Mother's Temple at Kali Ghat, where she worshipped the deity with utmost devotion, desiring to have a religious soul as her own son. She also promised to the Divine Mother that if her prayer was granted, she would propitiate her with the blood of her breast." Thus, Swami Abhedananda writes that the goddess fulfilled her prayer, and it was on an August night, the 2nd of October, 1866, when Nayantara was with a child. The day was the Bodhan Navami. The goddess Durga was being ushered in the homes of Bengal with sacred lights and rites, and this marked the hour of the advent of Kali Prasad, who was destined to become a great world teacher, carrying the universal message of Vedanta in the 2 continents of Europe and America. The newborn child was accordingly named Kali Prasad, the blessed of the goddess. Thus it was not a mere chance that the child was born in that house, but an unseen divine sign which few could realize then must have played a vital role in the birth of Swami Abhedananda. Great souls are born only when the destiny so wills.